This is the start of an era for me in the sense that it was such a fucking awful past couple of years that how it starts a new era for me is being more transparent with how I feel about how these
Okay.
things have gone. You know what I mean? As opposed to standing on a podium and proclaiming all the secrets of the universe, I'm basically standing there going like, "Holy shit, was that ever a rough period?"
Devin, it is great to see you again and talk to you. Last time we spoke, you told me that doing press is like, a cook having to do the dishes. It's just part of making a nice meal. I hope the dishes aren't too bad this time, or maybe it is. It's always great to see a lot of interest in your music and a lot of people want to talk to you. How are you doing today?
I'm good. I think a lot of what the opportunity to do interviews does bring to the table, though, is it allows you to bring some personal clarity into the process. And so much of what I do and my stock and trade is trying to essentially just accurately represent a period of time in which I went through. And it's
Yeah.
always going to have a different aesthetic, it's going to have a different vibe, it's going to have a different sound. And as long as I get it so that by the time I deliver it, I am comfortable that it summarizes that period, then I'm good to go. And that has happened. So I'm good to go.
In the press materials, this album is being labeled as the start of a new era. Now I know that this should be part of a trilogy coming, but is that also for you? So, like, do you consider this a proper start of a new era, or is this an example of, well, if I didn't have to put out a press statement, I never maybe would have thought of that?
No, I think it is, but it also it's the implication of starting a new period often comes with this kind of like renewed vigor and appetite for it, and this is the start of an era for me in the sense that it was such a fucking awful past couple of years that how it starts a new era for me is being more transparent with how I feel about how these
Okay.
things have gone. You know what I mean? As opposed to standing on a podium and proclaiming all the secrets of the universe, I'm basically standing there going like, "Holy shit, was that ever a rough period?" And
Hmm.
now that I'm coming through that, I'm a different person. And the process of creating music for me allows me to understand the person that I've become and am becoming. And so yes, it's the start of a new era, but it's starting on such a difficult note that it's not like a romantic overview of what's going on. It's a much more realistic one.
You've shared already in other interviews and press statements that um, maybe not so much the music, but the lyrical content of this album comes from your own dealing with loss and grief. Um, does that make also, like, in the quote unquote bigger picture, and if in a few years from now you will look back, does that make this album more, it's the message of the album more specific than others when it comes from such a very specific
I
inspirational
guess.
source?
I guess what it has brought to the forefront of my creative mind is how little control I have
Mm,
over these themes, right? Like I guess in the past I felt like I could guide these where they wanted to go, and I guess to the degree that I can consciously choose how to end a record and how to leave people with what sort of sentiment. I mean, other than that, I don't feel like I have much choice in the matter, and I write constantly, and I basically just take the songs and the ideas that I have and put them on these piles.
mm-hmm.
And those piles have sort of like things involved with, like, if there's an orchestral idea, I'll put it with the other orchestral ideas. If there's a,
Right.
a more commercial or pop rock kind of thing, I'll put it with that. And then after a while, when those piles become enough that you can see a full sentiment in it, then typically that's where I start to become interested in it. And then it's like you follow the clues that go along with that, to the point where you can actualize those records so they have a very distinct aesthetic. They have a very certain look and a certain vibe, and the intent with that is so when someone puts it on, they can be like, okay, so that's what happens when I put this record on, is I feel this way. And I guess with the PowerNerd thing, I'll look back at it as being the first record that I got sideswiped by, whereas I thought it was going to be one thing, but then because of the circumstances in my life that ended up becoming undeniable, it just simply became the vehicle for that frame of mind, for that, how do you get through depression? How do you get through these moments that seem insurmountable? And yeah, I will remember PowerNerd as being this unexpected vehicle for an unexpected time. Yeah. There it is, right?
So, because I remember you telling me last time we spoke, a year and a half ago, I guess, when you were promoting Lightwork, when you said, like, at that time, I'm working on 2 other albums at the same time now for what's next. Is it then a fair assumption that those 2 were not this?
The last 2 years have been very unexpected. I mean, the Moth is one of them, and I've been working on that for a while. But, I'll look back at this particular period of my life, like right post-pandemic, and I don't think there'll be a shortage of us that will look back at that period of our life as being very confusing, right?
Right.
And I think that the lessons that I needed to learn from that is just, you can't control any of these things. You can't control your creative impulses. You can't control how you react. Well, I mean, you can, but certain things like grief or sadness, it's like, maybe in the past I had erroneously thought that it was, it's the power of your mind, man, and all this sort of thing. But when I really dug into it, the more I recognized, I'm like, man, there's certain things that are beyond me. There's certain emotional things that I just, and perhaps in the past, all the sort of think positive shit that we're sort of inundated with would make you feel guilty. Like, why am I not able to get over this? Why can't I sort this out? And then part of that process of, like, just having compassion for yourself, it's like, because it's difficult. It's all there is to it, right? And the past 2-3 records that I've done, Puzzle, Lightwork, and PowerNerd, are all reactions to things that I didn't expect, I didn't see coming.
If it's true that the Moth is part 2 of this new era that's coming, but conceived from such a different way, less as a surprise maybe, because you were proactively working on it for a long time, and then all of a sudden this had to come out. You had to deal with this. How does that then work together as a part 1 and a part 2?
Well, because the process that we're trying to make an analogy for with the music and the Moth is that of actualizing yourself or transcending your own limitations. And the analogy of the caterpillar into the moth can be loosely ascribed to a metaphor of, like, death. But in order to understand how to transcend the patterns of one's own thinking, the things that need to come into play for that to even be an option, is you have to go into the things that you are afraid of.
Yeah.
And a lot of what I was afraid of was, like, death, or thinking about losing people or change, things like this. And so being thrust into an environment with PowerNerd where I had no choice but to confront these emotions is in every way an analogy for the character in the Moth.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a different way of portraying that process.
Yeah,
but it's the same thing. It's the same thing, and I guess the reason why it acts as a part one and part two, and part three is how, in my mind, it underlines that we're all the same. We're all dealing with the same shit, and the process of dealing with grief or coming through a storm in order to be there for the people whom we care about is going to be different for one person than it is for the other. But the mechanism's the same, right?
I love how you a few minutes ago, I think you said, a key thing here is having empathy for yourself in dealing with all of this. And it, to the extent, at least, this is my truth on the album, right? How I interpret the music, if you will. But because the light work felt like a very warm album and lots of uplifting sides to it. I feel like there's a lot of darkness on this album, especially in lyrics, but at the same time, it also gives me a lot of uplifting feeling, like especially in a song like Falling Apart, even in a song like Falling Apart, where at times I feel that it's almost like I'm being kept safe by this warm ray of sunlight, and making me feel that I'll be able to take on the universe when I'm listening to the song. How hard is it to start from that darkness and not only finding a glimmer of hope, but some bands will do, it's like, hey, the world's falling apart, everything is shit, but at the end we might survive, to, in your music, it literally goes, or at least that's how I've interpreted it. It goes from, I'm in a very dark spot, but 3 minutes later, I feel I can take on the universe.
Because of the people around me, for one. And also, that is the choice that I've made for my life. And in those moments of darkness, not that it's easier, but it seems so alluring to give up,
Mm-hmm.
But because I've got people in my life who are good people, or people who rely on me, or people who care about me, or people whom, my work allows them to keep going, or whatever it is, the strength that comes from saying, I don't want to get up, but I will, is a much more realistic, emotional place to be drawing from, in my opinion, than saying to everybody, all you have to do is think positive and all your problems will go away. Yeah. If you're feeling grief, it's because you're not putting enough energy into feeling positive. It seems so condescending. And I think a lot of what we're sold as a society is reduced to these sort of simplistic tropes. Be in the moment, think positive, all this shit, to the point where it loses all meaning. And what I chose to do consciously with PowerNerd, as opposed to light work when I was also depressed, was this time say, guys, I'm fucking rocked here. Like, this is hard. And yes, I'll get myself and I'll pull myself out of it. But don't think for a minute it's as simple as saying, just think positive. You know what I mean? In fact, what it requires is like experiencing that pain. And I don't think up to this point I've ever allowed myself to do that, because it seems like, again, we're told that, if you just don't address the negative part of your personality, then it will go away. But in so many ways, that negative part of our personality is as much us as the positive part. So it's about having compassion for each other, like for both sides, because what's happened for me for so many years is I've disallowed that part of me that's just like, I'm so fucking stressed. I'm so upset. I've disallowed it from having a voice, and instead I'm just like, everything's wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Think positive, all this shit. And then what that does is it created for me at least, like a disconnect internally, where I'm not allowing certain thoughts to come to the forefront. And I think what had happened in the past is I had thought, simply by allowing those thoughts to come to the forefront, you're going to act on them. Say you've got some intrusive thoughts, whether or not they're sexist or racist or whatever it is, you know, some horrible programming from our childhood. And then we have these thoughts, like maybe we have these thoughts, but we say, these are bad thoughts. Don't think them anymore. I think that the solution for PowerNerd ended up being like, these are your thoughts. Why do you have them? So don't act on them, but don't judge them. Just let them happen. And then by doing that, the intent of PowerNerd became a lot more honest, I have to say. Because as opposed to trying to tell people that I got my shit together and here's what you should do, PowerNerd ended up being like, I don't have my shit together. I don't know what to do. And the fact that through the work and through the people whom I love and my friends and family, we all got through this, the lyrics ended up being a lot more based on like the reality of the situation rather than the fantasy. And I think that's important for me.
Writing this in 11 days, did you then also limit yourself to the tools that you were using? I know that, last time I think you wrote an album with just one or two guitars, even though you probably own a million. What was it like for you trying to get this out in like a short amount of time? Were you focused on just a few instruments, or were like, okay, I'm going to try a ton of different things in a very short time?
Well, the 11 days was where I compiled everything, so because I write so consistently, I'll have like a chorus here or a verse here, and it goes constantly over the years. I've got piles and piles of shit. So when I start to compile it, and say, okay, so what's the verse, what's the chorus, what's this missing, what is this, that's where I did it for 11 days. And I did that consciously because even as you said, PowerNerd as a song is pretty simple, but it's got complexity in it. Even with the parameters that I put on myself, even with the limitations I put on myself, it ended up being complex. It's like, so what I'm trying to do with this stuff is really see what happens. And that's always been my personality musically. I wonder what would happen if I did X. And partially that's to create parameters that I can work within because I like limitations. I really work well with limitations. They're inspiring to me. It's like if I have endless options, I find that I just get, it's easy to get lost in those options. But if I've got like only one guitar, only one amp, and a couple plugins, then it inspires a type of creativity that I think is different. And so with this, I really tried to limit the length of the songs. I tried to limit the structures of the songs. I tried to get to the chorus quickly. I tried to focus on, as opposed to giving the audience, a 15-minute long interlude of arpeggios and explosions, I was like, what would happen if we gave them a nice verse, a nice pre-chorus, a nice chorus, and then see what would happen if we adhered whatever the theme was to that. And masochistically, I was very intrigued by what that did. But on a practical human level, it was a perfect storm of kerfuckery, right?
you're gonna put even more, limitations on yourself when you've announced some acoustic shows for November and December
Yeah,
coming up.
yeah.
So what, like, assuming that that's not simplifying, that's more painful for you, maybe. What's that experience going to be like, and what can we keep our eyes open for other shows being announced?
Well, I love the acoustic format because when I'm writing, I only write with basic sounds like, a
Uh-huh.
guitar echo or whatever. But the orchestra appears when I'm listening to it. So by playing acoustic, it offers me an opportunity to show people how all those things that end up being articulated through orchestras and overdubs and things are there fundamentally. I feel that the way that I do acoustic shows allows me to represent that kind of the depth to the writing process in a way that I think is interesting for the audience, because I don't think it's like all of a sudden you're playing Kumbaya with acoustic guitar. To me, when I play the acoustic guitar with my effects and everything, I create a very similar
Yeah,
atmosphere. It's just a different way of looking at it. So
yeah.
I look forward to it, and I like, I love playing acoustic shows. Actually, it's I could do that more than I do happily, and I think it would be really cool.
Thank you so much for your time today. I really, really appreciate it. I know this
And
has
you
been a
too.
very tough time, but I
Yeah,
hope that seeing all the fans react to the material and coming to cheer you on when you play either acoustically or with a full band setup in
very kind of you,
2025,
Jasper. Very
that
kind of you, man.
hopefully.
I really appreciate it. My hope with a record like PowerNerd is, as odd as it is, anybody who's gone through a similar thing could find some solace with it, because it's definitely from the heart.
There you go. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Hope to
Thank
see
you,
you soon
Jasper.
on the stage.
Talk to you soon, buddy.
You are awesome for watching this video. Click right here to see more content like it and subscribe to the channel.